Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today called the Medicine of Ayni, the shamanic healing art of living in sacred reciprocity with all our relations. My name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be with you here, learning, exploring, growing right alongside with you by connecting with a really beautiful man. His name is Don Oscar Miro Quesada, and he's helping us to bridge the ancient lifeways into the modern world in some really remarkable ways. He's a transpersonal psychologist and trained Peruvian shamanic healer, and really adept at bridging the ancient lifeways and knowledge pathways of the shamanic traditions into a modern context. And he's been one of our most popular Shift faculty and a beloved brother and friend. So thank you so much, Don Oscar, for joining us here today.
Napaikuyaiki runa kunap suya kuning tiayukui ukupi songkopa nyokani nyokanchik kaipi kunanka yapanta chuyaya ukupi inaya. Greetings, hope of the people. Welcome into my heart. I am, we are, here, now, all one within. Deep gratitude, Stephen, and the Shift Network for allowing this opening to the ancestral ritual healing arts and earth honoring ceremonial ways of my people.
Well, thank you, Don Oscar, for opening in that ritual way. And I can feel there's an energy that opens up just like zoom when you speak in Quechua and you invoke these lineages. And so I know we're going to have an hour here today with you. And I also want to spend some time talking at the end about your upcoming program called Reverence, Ritual, and Renewal. But let's begin with a bit of your background for folks who are not familiar with you or haven't seen you teach before. Just share a little bit about what propelled you onto a shamanic path to really connect with these ancient teachings and bridge them into the worlds of psychology and modern philosophy.
Well, today, as I understand it, I had been propelled onto that path before even incarnating, my good brother. Yet, as a historical overview, it all began when my father, a physician, was working for the National Institutes of Health in Peru and stationed in very remote areas of the coast, the highlands, the central highlands, and the central Amazon rainforest of Peru. So when I was in my most formative years, between 8 months to almost 3 years old, I spent in indigenous communities that were extremely immersed in the living soul of the natural landscape in which they inhabited and were protectors of that. So that influenced me a great deal. Upon returning to Lima, there was one event that happened when I was 4 years old that is embedded in my psyche and in my heart. It was the wake-up call. And I remember being on the beach in La Herradura, and there was this very hard-packed wet sand, and there was a nautilus shell that had these spiral formations. And I remember picking it up and pressing its imprint into the sand and being amazed at the artistry in that. And there was something that happened in which I was catapulted into the spiral origins of our cosmos. It was a deeply transformative experience that stayed with me ever since, but I knew that I was not on a planet that only had this ocean or this sky or these people or these physical expressions of what reality was, but there was something deeper. Fast forward, I had severe asthma, which through an encounter with the other side resulted in its total healing. And as a result of that, that was at 10 years old, and I don't have time to go into detail right now. As a result of that, I was led to meet my first mentor, Don Celso Rojas Palomino, from the northern coastal village of Salas in Chiclayo, where I began my apprenticeship. But all of these events, my formative years with indigenous rural communities, my understanding of the spiral nature of creation as an evolutionary process, and the healing of my asthma by beings of light when I was age 10, and then remembering that only when I met my mentor in a San Pedro Mesada, in a ceremonial gathering, all catapulted me to where I am now, sharing these waves with the modern Western world.
It's quite a journey that's taking you to where you are today. So let's turn to the subject of today, the medicine of Ayni. And this Ayni is a word. I traveled to Peru a number of years ago, and it was on the lips of many people, and it was really at the heart of a lot of the shamanic teachings that I was hearing. And it feels like the kind of term that is like Dharma from the East, where it has many layers of meaning, and it's the kind of term that I think can actually really open a new understanding of life and possibility. So I'd love for you to share in your own words, what is Ayni, and why does it offer us important medicine for our current times?
Gladly. Ayni is a form of exchange, and it forms the basis of all Andean ethos or sense of identity. The Andean people, pre-Columbian people in general, understand that there is a give and take, a receiving and an offering forward that is expressed throughout all of the cycles, tonalities, rhythms, and orderings of the natural world. And that we are part of that great sacred unfolding where there is a balanced dualism, a equilibrium and homeostasis between what is given birth, what dies, and most importantly, that place in the center we call life, kausai. So Ayni is a state of understanding, visceral, experiential obeisance or obligation to living in balance with one's world. And it has a counterpart called Minka. In essence, Ayni is neighborly assistance. We say Ayni kusunchis, meaning we must help each other. It is an obligation to offer forward assistance to somebody who is in need. Once that person in need receives it, since everything needs a reciprocal sanctity as a contract between that type of experience of give and take, once the person who receives it, then they are minka. They owe the person who gave them the help a return favor. And that, in that manner, the ayus, or the local families that form a community, always sustain, help, and benefit from each other's give and take. Now, if you understand Ayni as today for me, tomorrow for you, it's very easy to understand that it's a principle that is a dynamic that is present in every expression of life, from the birth of a supernova to the expression of even the horrendous cataclysmic natural events that are blanketing our planet. They are all expressions of this wisdom's necessity to keep things in balance, to allow a homeostatic presence of Iatexemuyu Taitanchi Wiracochas Pachacamax dreaming womb, of the great originating mysteries necessity to have its children, not only human, but the entire soul animated family within the heart of that creation, to be attentive, mindful, better said soulful, to her balancing ways. This is the best way I can describe the medicine as Ayni, as indispensable for today's modern world.
You mentioned the number of natural disasters that are blanketing our planet right now, from hurricanes to fires to floods. And There's some obvious scientific reasons for that happening, but I'd love for you to speak how that can also be a reflection of where we're out of the right relationship, that sacred reciprocity with nature now.
Well, certainly. It's all part of the Pachacuti, the world reversal, the cosmic transformation. As you know, Stephen, Pacha is a very important term, as well equal in importance to Ayni in the Andes. Pacha means world, time, space, energy, creation. It's a level of consciousness that is embedded in life, Pacha. So it's not just the Earth Mother. It is what's enfolded in the Earth Mother, all of her expressions, both seen and unseen. So Pachacuti means that there's a constant process of transformation and change that occurs to maintain the creative diversity of nature, of Mother Nature, of Pachamama. So you need, in the words of Friedrich Nietzsche, you need chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. These cataclysmic events we're experiencing are no surprise. They're coming to a time, they are part of a time that's been prophesied as the Aukapacha, the end of the Iron Age, much like the Kali Yuga. And there is a breaking down of many things in order to allow a breakthrough, an evolutionary leap. And in similar fashion, it is allowing people to never forget that Taoist adage that crisis is opportunity. So in a sense, we are being called to step up to the plate, to change, to be part of the transformation, and to return to an earth-honoring way that is guided and informed by the wisdom teachings of our ancestral indigenous peoples on planet. This is what our Earth needs, as well as all the scientific innovations that are helping attenuate many of these things that I'm very optimistic about, a marriage between the inner and the outer, birthing a new planetary, peaceful, sustainable human presence upon Earth.
Oh, what a beautiful vision you're sharing. So I want to kind of drill a little bit deeper down into this notion of how do we shift that relationship with Pachamama, with the Mother Nature. And I know that ritual is part of that, how that manifests in terms of a shamanic practice. And so maybe share a little bit about how shamanic practices help to put us into a deeper rapport and place of reciprocity and Ayni with nature.
Most definitely. Simply put, all you need is a little pouch, some cornmeal, some tobacco, some pollen, some offering of gratitude for your experience of life. And if you go outside with your little sanctified pouch or consecrated pouch that carries these ingredients known to be mihushanku, known to be important ritual nourishment for the Earth Mother in all of her expressions, and daily sprinkle a little tobacco or cornmeal at the base of a tree, or go to a river and offer some, and enter into that state of communion, of that state of entrainment with the living earth and her very wise sentience. Over time, it becomes inevitable that you will hold back, you will, refrain from committing any type of act, either in thought, word, or action, that may destabilize the ecosapient balance or the earth consciousness that the mother requires of her human children. So in a simple act of just carrying some offerings with you in a pouch and making that part of your sadhana, your daily connection to spirit, offer a little bit to whatever area you see needs a little recognition, a little hello, I remember you. That begins to ritualize a much deeper understanding of how to serve the earth with more advanced and elaborate rituals that actually call on the powers and forces behind the veil, both here on earth and in the sky, to effect direct change and influence transformation in humans and also the web of life.
So part of what I'm hearing and what you're sharing is that when we do ritual, we enter into a more full spectrum or sacred kind of relationship with the natural world, and that actually gives us more capacity to affect things in a deeper way.
Well, it does stand to reason that when you become grateful for the sacred gift that is this earth life, you no longer become just a passers-by. You become a contributor to the beautification of this earth for future generations. There's no way you cannot, through your word, through your dreaming, through your ritual action, awakened to the heartbeat of our mother, not to want to beautify her further as your legacy to the 7 generations.
Beautiful. Let's talk about, there's some specific ways of making rituals that, you call despachos, and there's different types of despachos. So how does this ritualized offering to the earth, how do you do that, and what are the different types?
Well, Haiwarikui konoi is a burnt despacho. A despacho, it's a common word now known because of the Quero elders that have visited the United States and other shamanic teachers from the Andes that have popularized the art of earth feedings, of ritualized creations, of these mandala type of offering surfaces, much like spirit plates that are used in the plains tradition, or prasad that are used in the Shivaic temples in India. They're food for the gods, food for the deities. And despachos in the Andes are usually made with animal, with vegetable or plant, with mineral, and with human-made items that have a specific, not only symbolic, but actual material vibratory frequency that matches or aligns with the needs of the particular entities that you seek to feed, the particular deities. Most despachos are done to the Apukuna, the great sacred mountain deities, those venerated old ones that have seen everything pass by on this earth and have been the keepers of great knowledge. So, and the protectors of the crops and of the fields and of the human populations that live at their skirt. So the apus are usually the primary offering destination of a creation that is like a mandala shaped dish, a smorgasbord of deliciousness and beauty that is wrapped up and offered to the Wilkarina, the sacred fire, so that the smoke itself is the effluence. It is that which the spirit world can consume, because it needs a much more refined expression than just the physicality of the food. It becomes mihushangu, sacred nourishment for our spiritual universe. That's what despachos are.
Beautiful. And how does this connect with the principle of Ayni? So if we're essentially making a food offering and a offering of beauty and from our hearts to earth spirits, then how does that create a cycle of reciprocity?
Well, it all is Ayni, given the fact that you just take the time, make the sacrifice to offer something selflessly, without attachment to outcome, without necessity for others to say, oh man, you're doing a good thing for Mother Earth. But you just yourself, in humble recognition that the mother is a sentient living, that the apus are wise old ones, that you enter into that relationship with these ancestral beings as with the same type of gratitude a child has for their own parents, and expresses it in a loving way, like you would give a gift to your elder parents, that shows that you love them, that you have munaiki, that you have a deep appreciation for the birth of their truth in your heart. In other words, you step up to the plate as a midwife of everything that the sacred mountains, the rivers, the earth, the animals, the plants, the flowers, the medicines of the world that are speaking to us all the time, but we don't take the time to listen, have offered forth into our lives. It's an expression of gratitude, which in turn is the embodiment of Ayni, of sacred reciprocity.
Beautiful. I love this really brings things alive when you talk about it like this. And I want to just go a bit further into the ritual side of things and to talk about how the doing rituals, also aligning with the seasons and the rhythms of the seasons is also another way to enter into this deeper kind of field of relationship with all of nature.
Yes, both in the coastal communities of Peru as well as the highland communities of Peru, mestizo and direct descendant of the Inca or pre-Inca in the highland Andes, the Quechua people, there is an understanding that there are specific rituals or ceremonies to be performed at times of the year that are able to sustain the particular bounty or the benefit of that cyclical moment, that the earth aligns in its rotation around the sun, or its orbit around the sun, and rotation on its axis, as well as with the equinoctial precession, that 25,920 year movement around our galactic center, in which the Earth's axis is aligned to that galactic center. So both the galactic and the planetary become aligned in these seasons. In the winter solstice, in the spring equinox, in the summer solstice, and in the fall equinox, as well as during any of the astronomical alignments that are significant, that come upon us in a more random manner, although predictable, as the ancient Aztecs and Maya and also Inca did, such as the eclipses that were very important that recently we had. When you align your rituals and ceremonies to these celestial events and these cyclical moments of transformation from one state to another, especially when it comes to the Earth's climate, allows the management of the rains that irrigate the soil in which you have just planted your crop to be, orderly, to come at the right time, to avoid droughts. It allows the fields to go fallow at the right time without too much icing on it, without too much of a damaging of what has just been planted. So it keeps the people of these shamanic traditions totally in alignment with the natural cycles of Pachamama's dreaming womb, and in turn allows them to also have children, pass on these wisdom traditions to their offspring in a manner in which, when the woman carries babe in their womb, when out in the fields at the right time of the year, doing a Haiwarikui Konoi, a despacho, a Mihushanku during winter solstice, for instance, or going on a Pacowachu pilgrimage to a venerated mountain that is their regional Apu in the fall equinox. There are many there are many variations that I will be covering later on, but you get the idea of how our rituals in association with the seasons of the year allow, once again, a life of balance with the natural world that feeds our human soul and keeps humble servants to the all.
You know, as you're speaking, I'm just feeling the juxtaposition between the kind of modern Western sensibility, which is so focused on the individual, and the way you speak. It's just like we're just, you know, so much more connected into all these nested relationships all the way up to the galactic, and to see that there's this alignment process and so much less focus on the individual in many ways.
Totally. And that brings me to something I'd like to share, which is an expression of a Westerner, good old Wendell Berry, which you may be aware of. For there is shamanism in the Western psyche. There is a shamanic understanding, and has been forever. And the voices who give expression to this are more poets and philosophers and artists than the scientists, although a few, like Wendell Berry, is a marriage of both science and poetry. And he has this little piece that I'd like to share with all of us here listening. The piece of wild things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night, at least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I came into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars, waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free. Wendell Berry. That embodies the Andean cosmovision, the lived visceral embodiment of being the earth that our indigenous peoples still have much to teach us about.
Beautiful. So I want to ask a little bit about more, how do we put Ayni into practice in our human relationships in a deeper way? So we talked a little bit about ritual and connecting with the elements. And so how does that begin to shift the ground of our partnerships, our families, our community?
Excellent question, Stephen. So just like when you go out on vision quest, on a pacowachu to nature, to commune in silence, and you fast and you cleanse yourself and you open to receiving the voice of Mother Nature or of Great Spirit, it requires a quieting. That is missing in our modern or postmodern human interpersonal fabric. Sadly so. And making a time of being a good listener with your partner, with your community, having, passing the feather talking circles is a way to restore the ability to enter into a deep listening with each other. And from that will emerge a transcendent third, something that is greater than ourselves, something that is a common origin within us that can lead us as a unified human sacred activist force to do good in the world. Now, at a very simple level, as an Ayu, when a mother and father have any type of disagreement, they make the time to go out to where their most sacred fire area is to do the offerings of the despacho. And they perform a ritual in which they sit in front of each other with coca leaves. It's called a haipai ceremony. And they exchange coca leaves silently without saying anything. And they chew the coca leaves with some yipta, this like mineral lime that activates the mind clearing aspect of that sacred plant. And they do it in a very reverent way, of course. And after they've chewed a little bit, knee to knee, they sit down and hold hands. And one of them, who has a heavy heart, will speak, "What I want you to know that is heavy in my heart is this." And they just tell the story. They tell their story, knowing that the other person is never going to go ahead and interrupt them or try to counteract them they're just there as a deep listener. And then if the other person even has a desire to speak, if their speech is not superfluous, then they change roles and the other person will offer. And then they offer their coca quid to the earth. That's how we maintain a true sacred relationship among humans. There are tools and techniques that have tuned into the morphic field of this ancient practice that have been integrated within Gestalt and other, bioenergetic, humanistic therapies that you well know, encounter groups, T groups, things like that, that modern third force psychology has adopted. Yet originally, these communication skills emerged out of our tribal nations. Now you take that simple partnership communication experience as an into me you see, as an allowance of intimacy with each other, and you bring that into a circle in which everybody is there as a deep listener, passing a sacred item around without needing to fix anything, without needing to reach a conclusion, to have a result, just to speak your heart freely to Great Spirit and trust in that originating mystery that in time, what is necessary for the people will indeed be so. Practicing these things is Ayni. Practicing these things is medicine for the human community.
And wow, that was a beautiful description. And I'd love for you to share a little bit more, like in facing the kind of challenges that humanity is facing right now. It's like, why do we need to integrate the principle of Ayni so that we can essentially address the places that are out of balance, and just sort of why this is not just a personal medicine, but a collective medicine now?
Why is not the right word to use when inquiring into such a realm of human possibility, my good brother. The what's, the where's, the how's, the when's, all of those work, but not the why's. The why's need to be come upon intersubjectively by each individual. There's no answer to that really, except modeling it in one's behavior. And so what I would say in response to that is, there's never been a more important time to carry our personal aspirations, needs, and desires, both as a normal two-legged, success-seeking soul, as well as a spiritual being, from an individual concern to a planetary and world service concern. If we do not create a unified, peaceful, cooperative human presence on planet, this is going to be probably the last Pachacuti that we witness for millennia as two-leggeds. And I say this not as a doomsday, in a doomsday prophetic sense, yet it's up to humankind to better the Holocene. We created this world era right now, Stephen.
Hmm.
And if we do not take responsibility for decreating that which is destructive and find a way to ingeniously and creatively inform our reason for being on this planet as the same reason for a winged one to fly overhead, as a sunset and a sunrise to inspire awe in our lives, as a newborn babe's innocence to bring us to tears.
Hmm.
There's no chance that we will continue to be able to flourish
Hmm.
as a dignified human species as we deserve.
Hmm. Well, I'm completely with you. That was so poetically and heartfully shared, and it's true that we need to make this shift into the kind of state of being that you're offering so powerfully here.
And so the rituals of that I am offering through the Pachacuti Mesa tradition, as well as through our Universal Shaman series and shift, are specifically designed to galvanize that collective midwifing virtue that we have to be able to bring forth this new way
Hmm.
of walking in beauty upon planet.
Fantastic. Well, that is what we are all here to do, to walk in beauty, to live in sacred reverence with each other, with the planet. And I can tell from knowing you and knowing those around you that you really do walk in reverence with an open heart and sometimes a bit of rascally laughter as well, which is all part of it. And but in just a few minutes, we'll share about your upcoming training. But before we do, I'd love for you to just share a little bit more about the kinds of practices that you utilize within the Pachacuti Mesa tradition as a vehicle for this deepening, and just maybe a broad overview. So for people who are not as familiar with this lineage, since it has some unique distinguishing aspects from others.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Pachacuti Mesa tradition of cross-cultural shamanism is focused on the creation of a shamanic altar ground known as a mesa, uh, which derives from the Spanish word table. So it's a serving table that is very meticulously patterned and configured with sacred ceremonial items, shamanic power objects, healing tools that you would be able to use for healing self, others, and also offering in service to our earth, etc. And we become ritual operators of a living cosmology that calls in the ancestral forces and powers of the lineage known as Kamaska. Kamaska, Kamaskqa, in Quechua means creative power. So the Pachacuti Mesa tradition educates, brings forth out of the person their creative power as a ritualist, that by doing even their individual specific Pachacuti Mesa rituals at home, like activating the mesa, the Pachamama renewal process, and the various other forms of sadhana or psycho-spiritual exercises that are associated with this use of the altar, gestate and generate and amplify a field, a collective field of shamanic awakened ones, which I call the Kanchak Hukniyuk, the shining ones. And we call on each other to, on certain times of the year, whether absentee or together in person, do pilgrimages to sacred sites, build stone cairns known as apachetas, which are like acupuncture points in the meridian body of the mother, known as the sekenyang, or the spirit pathways, and start to reconnect a lot of the sacred landscape shrines that our ancestors still venerate with our own mesas at home, with our own sacred landscape within the altar that we are the caretakers of. So the outer and the inner become merged into one. The above and the below become a reflection of each other. The behind is a protecting shield, and the before, that which guides us, will become one and the same in the eternal now, in the present, and the left and the right. The campo ganadero, the field of gain, and the campo justiciero, the field of justice, as we call it, become integrated in el campo maestro curandero, in the middle field of shamanic power. These rituals make you a balanced, Ayni infused contributor to the shamanic evolution of human planetary consciousness. That's what the PMT, or the Pachacuti Mesa tradition of cross-cultural shamanism, is designed to accelerate.
Well, thank you so much for that overview and for this deeper work. I know you spend so much of your time not only in service to individual healing, but also working on collective healing, service to Pachamama, to reweaving the fabric of love and respect and reverence that we've often lost with the natural world. And so I also concur that the only way that we can make the shift to this higher possibility for humanity now is through a reestablishing of this fabric of reverence and connection between us, and the Ayni that essentially reflects our deeper divinity and true nature. So that's part of why we're so delighted and excited that you have created a brand new program that's going to take people still deeper into this work. And it's called Reverence, Ritual, and Renewal, being a shamanic evolutionary healing force for our world. This is going to be a program that Don Oscar has sculpted just for this moment and for a new set of teachings to come through. A fusion of both teaching key concepts, key ideas, key practices, but really primarily doing ritual work, to do the healing work, the evolutionary work that allows you to be a conduit for more transformational energy and presence in your life personally, in your community, and ultimately our world. And this particular program is particularly consecrated to the needs of the earth at this planet at this time. We thought about calling it, or Don Oscar thought about calling it Pachamama's calling, because it is in response, our heartfelt response to the need of Mother Earth right now to engage these practices. So Don Oscar, I'd love for you to share in your own words, what is the journey you're going to be taking people on?
Well, I'm going to ask us all to close our eyes, bring our awareness to our breath, allow our breath to become effortless and natural through the nose, and allow the tip of your tongue to gently touch your upper palate. Relax your body. Exhale all the air from your lungs and hold on the exhalation. Now gently inhale, full, deep, full breath through the nose, filling your lungs to capacity. Retain, hold, allowing your presence together on this good blessing of perfection in the present moment to be medicine for our world. And on the count of 3, in Ayni, the above, Fukui, blow forth. 1, 2, 3. Gently open your eyes and return fully to your physical awareness. Crystallizing our unified presence as midwives of living in Ayni, in sacred reciprocity, of learning simple and eventually more involved, more in-depth ritual skills that will elicit in the practitioner an inextricable experience of solidarity with a soul-animated universe. It's going to be able to feed the sekenyang, the spirit pathways of our mother, the subtle energy body that really is the template for the beauty and the magnificence of her outer physicality. So, through this particular initiation into reverence, ritual, and renewal, through deepening your reverence for this living, soul-animated multiverse of which we are a luminous strand in its web, in its exquisite tapestry, you are able to realize that Mother Nature, the universe itself, is a ritual dance, a ritual symphony. Everything, the mating rituals of our animal relatives, the prescribed ordering of our celestial canopy, everything has a ritual ordered sense. And in the midst of the cacophony of the chaotic dismemberment that we're experiencing as a human species, there's nothing more important than align ourselves with that ritualized behavior of both the cosmic and the personal. Through that, the planetary can always be fed and nurtured. So this entire program has been developed as a renewal, from reverence to ritual to renewal, a renewal of our ability as two-leggeds to evoke the power within ourselves as artists, as ritualists, as ceremonialists, without any experience prior necessary, but just to show up in, if you like, the power that is invested in true spiritual communities such as our Ayus, make a difference within Pachamama's cries, within her heaps and her sobs, for she is really concerned of having lost her Pacha, Mama, Churicuna, her children. This is the best way I can summarize what's behind this training, my good brother.
Well, I love the in-depth philosophy and heartfelt, reverential, spiritual orientation underneath this. And it really, truly is a program that's in service to people's awakening and to our world. And it's going to be a mixture of audio and some video as well. There's a particular potency when Don Oscar is able to teach and transmit through video. You get a sense for the altar grounds, the mesa in the background there. There's a way in which the concepts penetrate through. So we'll be mixing some audio and some video for this program, and particularly focus on the practicum for doing rituals in service to really, with despachos, to doing rituals of renewal and apachetas, that there's going to be a real look at how do we begin to reestablish this deeper reverential connection with each other and ultimately the world. So Don Oscar, could you share a bit about the module structure? I know there's 4 overarching modules for the program.
The Andean Cosmovision, Module 1. Travels Behind the Veil, Module 2. A Labor of Love, Module 3. Your Shamanic Self, or Our Shamanic Self, Module 4. Now, progressively, from Module 1, where you will learn to set up your Pachacuti Mesa altar ground, hands-on, and then also engage in practices such as the Pachamama renewal process, in which you embody the 5 elements: earth, water, air, fire, and ether, in the Andean context of their use within yourself, and through yourself offer a feeding to the earth. This is done preferably outdoors. All of this living cosmovision of the Andean mythic reality will no longer just be something that you read about or a story, but it will be an embodied experience of what it means to be human. So you in your Pachamama renewal process, performance of these ceremonies are actually the medicine. You are the living medicine. It travels behind the veil. We're going to focus on 3 distinct shamanic journeys that are very, very, very rarely apprenticed in shamanic circles around the world, because they're specifically of the Camasca northern coastal tradition. Viaje con sombra, or a journey with your spirit double, ensueño, which is dream travel, and desdoblamiento, which is a form of out-of-body experience that affects both all 3 respectively, spatial, temporal, and energetic dimensions of our human experience for healing service to another or to a larger environmental area that needs it. In the 3rd module, you'll be initiated into the various forms of jaiwa and despacho and ofrendas, different types of earth feedings, and how to assemble them, and the times of which to best perform them, and the different purposes and intentions behind each one that can influence conditions that need to be changed and transformed, as well as be initiated into Quintu Fukui, the use of a 3-leaf quintu, coca quintu, in this case, bay leaves, because a lot of people don't have them, as a medium in which your prayers can, just like the smoke of the despacho feeds the apu, your prayers can go directly to the great originating mystery in petition and intercession for your service work in the world. The coca quintu is fundamental to being able to go ahead and receive guidance from that presence that is so much greater than ourselves. And also Pacowachu, pilgrimage, as a visioning, as a seeking not only of a spirit name or of a direction in life, but as a actual sacrifice, a personal sacrifice of you being able, whether you can be physically able to walk to a sacred site, to honor it with your tobacco, with your cornmeal, with your coca quintus or not, or using the disciplined power of your imaginative capacity, be able to send your sombra, send your spirit double to that place and perform the same type of offerings there. And most importantly, build a stone cairn in Apacheta that serves as a spirit marker of your path as a shining one upon planet.
Mm. Well, so many fascinating subject areas. It's going to be an amazing program. I can tell already. And one thing I should just mention is Don Oscar is a totally beloved teacher. People who go through his programs keep going through his programs. They love him. They stay as apprentices for years to come. Oftentimes, there's a real authentic wisdom transmission that comes through his teaching and presence. So I'll share a little also about some other aspects of this program. So you get the 13 90-minute class sessions with Don Oscar. There's video. There's also the weekly exercises and practices for inquiry and for ritual practice as well. There's an online learning community on Facebook. We give you unlimited access to the recordings and PDF transcripts, word for word from every class. There's a special thing about this program. You'll also be gathering a number of materials that will help you to do ritual and to best embody this program. So there'll also be a supply list that's part of this program as well, so that you can fully engage in the ritual elements. There's a number of great bonuses as well. There's one with called Trickster and Shaman in Dialogue. That's a video dialogue between Caroline Casey, an amazing, rascally, wild teacher of astrology, visionary activism, and all sorts of fascinating terrain. So that's the 2 of them in dialogue. That's a real treat. There's also a dialogue between Don Oscar and Joan Borisenko, Wholeness and Health as Meaning, the Shamanic Soul of Mind-Body Medicine. Probably recognize Joan Borisenko's name as one of the preeminent pioneers of mind-body medicine. So really looking at the deeper shamanic dimensions of wholeness and health. There's also a whole huge bonus really from Don Oscar called the Pachacuti Mesa Tradition, basics toolkit that includes a basics guide, a Quechua terminology guide, a toning of the directions audio file, and wisdom guide, a compilation of teachings. So that is a whole roster of different things. And there's also going to be a special video orientation with Don Oscar to assist those of you who are brand new to his teachings. That's called Assembling a Pachacuti Mesa. The creation of an altar ground is actually mandatory for this program, so you can fully participate. We don't want this just to be head learning. We want it to be embodied learning. So that's part of why that's going to be a requirement. So we've kept this very accessible. It's a very in-depth journey with a whole bunch of extra resources that allow you to really put these work into practice. We just feel really blessed and honored to be hosting and developing these programs with Don Oscar. He's a teacher that the more you know him, the more you love him, and the more grateful you are for receiving this wisdom transmission that has deep roots in the Andes and also the flowers in the whole modern world, since he draws from a lot of deep insight with psychology, mythology, and philosophy. So, Don Oscar, what a great blessing it's been to have this time together. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share directly with folks who are considering joining you for the journey of reverence, ritual, and renewal?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the Wisdom Corpus is an extraordinary document that is a compilation of questions and answers submitted through our Facebook community, virtual community, that is much more than just virtual. It's a true pulsing, living field that has been answered not only by myself, these questions, but by my sanctioned Pachacuti Mesa teachers, who I am deeply indebted to. We have assistants that will be answering your questions via Facebook that are seasoned experts in these same rituals that I'll be teaching, that are going to be available, other than myself and my beloved wife, Cynthia Louise, that will be there as part of the sustenance in the womb of our Universal Shaman community, by answering your questions via Facebook. But this wisdom corpus is something that has evolved out of the Shift Network's opening for us to be of service in the world. And if you have that alone, it's a huge contribution to your soul's evolution on planet. Alone and all of these other things together, cumulatively, is a mystery tradition, like the great Hermetic wisdom schools of the past, yet relevant to the future, here and now.
Well, thank you for that. And you're right that it is a mystery tradition that we're so happy to bring it to the larger world and to unveil some of the mysteries behind the universe that you are so adept at showing us. So I encourage you to go there right now, go read through the page, read through the modules, read through the testimonials, get a feeling, take a little meditation to get a feeling for whether this is the right next step for you. And if you get a yes, you know that you are warmly welcome. There's a money back guarantee of your satisfaction. So thank you all. And thank you, Don Oscar. It's been a delight and a pleasure and honor again to walk in reverence and walk in beauty with you. So thank you. Many blessings.